Hello and welcome. In my last video, I compared this $450 Japanese Seiko SARB065 with a $50 Chinese watch I found online, the Holuns Mister. Both automatics, both look good. No surprise though, for 8 times as much money, I did prefer the Seiko. But not as much as I would have expected going in. The Chinese watch made a very good showing. One of the things I was curious about in my last video was that they claimed to have a sapphire crystal for only $50, and I was a little skeptical of that. I still am, so later in this video I'm going to do a quick test to give an indication if it might be or might not be. So this time around though, I thought I would level the playing field a little bit. Instead of putting it up against a watch that costs 8 times as much, I now have this $50 Holuns Mister going up against a $70 Japanese watch, the venerable Orient 3-star. So let's see how they compare. Oh, but before we get started, I do want to mention something. My last video, my very first video, where I compared the Holuns and the Seiko, was only made to test camera equipment. My wife built this office for her business and she wants to start making some YouTube tutorials. So I set her up with a camera and some lights and made that. I should have labeled it just test video, because by labeling it, comparing a Chinese to a Japanese watch, I got thousands of views. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't put any effort into the video. I sucked, frankly, and it showed. Well, this time around, I'll try to do a little better job. So here we go. So we'll start again with what's in the box. You have a strap adjusting tool, a cheap one, but it worked very well. I have had to use it twice now. No complaints. You get an instruction book. You get a certificate and club card, and I think the nicest part of the whole package, you get this gift bag. So if you want to give somebody a $50 Chinese watch as a present, you can throw it in there, make it seem a little classier. And once again, I want to point out what a nice box this comes in. I'm still rather surprised by it. It's solid wood, it's reasonably hefty, and it has that nice gold tone markings on top. It really does look sharp. All right, and inside, well, there's the goods. Now, a viewer of my last video was kind enough to leave a comment alerting me to the fact that it's actually, well, he was very charitable. He says it's an homage to a Longines model, and he provided me a link. I'll throw the picture up here. You can judge for yourself. I think at this point it crosses over from homage to note-for-note copy. So, all right, let's give a little rundown here. Well, here you go. It is hand winding, or hand windable, and you have the day-date complication. It is a hacking movement, so there you go. And it comes on actually a surprisingly nice metal bracelet. Solid end links, and a very nice clasp. Last time around I was very impressed with this clasp, and I still am. It's got the name and date laser etched in there. But the most important thing is it's a very solid feel to the clasp. Even if the links themselves are a little jiggly, the clasp, I mean, it's solid steel, it's not stamped, and it goes in securely, and it releases just as easily. You have the movement back here, and it's actually a rather pretty movement. I mean, considering, you see a few jewels in there. The rotor it's got the gold tone accents, if you can see that. So all in all, a very pretty package, polished all the way around. It's got the gold tone bezel, gold tone crown, gold numbers and indices and hands, and then the rest is polished steel. So I'll give the dimensions at the end, and let's check out the Orient. Now the Orient comes in a pretty typical Orient package. It gets shipped out in the white box, stamped Orient, and inside you get an instruction book, and you get the typical Orient box. Nothing wrong with that. Not as elaborate or as much stuff included as the Chinese, but really what you need is what's inside. And there it is. And boy, is it shiny. Holy mackerel. Now I got this watch because I saw a review of the white-faced version by Kurt over at Minute Watch. If you haven't seen him, he's hilarious. You really should watch his channel. Very funny guy, very knowledgeable about watches, and does great reviews. I went with the champagne just to see what it looked like. You don't want to wear the same dress as the other girl. So here you go. This is the, in case you were interested in the number, the FEM0401XC9. So let's take a look at this. All right, well, it's shiny. I don't know if I mentioned that. Get used to hearing it. This, again, day-date complication, like the Holuns. However, this is only automatic. You cannot hand wind it. The movement is not hackable. So you can change the day and date. The day changes with the pusher. The date uses this pull-out crown. And that's how you change the hands for the time. But again, it does not hack. Comes on this brown leather strap. And it's really not a bad strap. I mean, it's not a great strap, but it is signed Orient. And it's reasonably comfortable. What else here? I'll give you the dimensions again at the end. It may or may not have loom. It's so bright you can't see the loom. I mean, even if it didn't have loom, you could see this thing in the dark from across the yard. All right, let me do a quick wrist check here and see what it looks like. Now, this is a slightly smaller diameter watch than is currently in vogue, which is fine with me. I kind of grew up on the 34, 36 millimeter dress watches in my youth, and so I'm rather used to this. Oh, yeah, I should mention here, it does have Orient inscribed nicely in the buckle, matching gold tone. Wow, that's bright. Did I say that already? All right, so here you go. I think it actually looks pretty good. I mean, fairly long lug width, so it doesn't wear quite as small as the numbers might suggest. Strap is a little bit long. My wrist is almost exactly 7 inches, and it still pokes out from the end there. But slim enough, fits right under the collar. And there you go. So let me do a quick wrist check of the Holuns by comparison. There's the Holuns. Fits nice. Of course, I did size it, and it still looks very sharp. I still really enjoy wearing this. And like the Orient, cuff slides right on and off, or over and off. So I've never had a problem wearing this as a dress watch. All right, let's get to checking the crystal. So in my last video, I noted that the Holuns claim to have a sapphire crystal, and I found that, well, I still find it incredible, if not unbelievable. I would have expected mineral or less for that price. But they did claim it, and a viewer kindly left a comment down below saying, why don't you do the water droplet test? And I remember I saw something about that on one of the videos that Mark from LongIslandWatch.com put up. I'll put a link down below. So he explained everything and how different materials will bead up water differently. So I've cleaned all the watch faces here with an eyeglass cleaner solution, and I've got 3 watches. I've got my Movado Museum Classic with a sapphire crystal, or it better be. In the center you have the Holuns, and on the left here, the Seiko SARB065 with a Hardlex crystal. So I'm going to drop a drop of water on each, see what happens. Hopefully the camera will pick it up. Might be a little tough at this angle. So the sapphire crystal should have a nice high domed solid bead that just stays in place. So on the Movado, that's indeed what it looks like. Now with the Holuns, also stays in place as a nice high dome. And on the Seiko, it does seem to spread out a bit more. Yeah, you can see that kind of spreading a bit, I hope, with the camera. The other test, of course, after you drop a drop on it, let me just move this out of the way, a genuine sapphire crystal will run off rather smoothly. Oops, looks like the Seiko wants to go first, whereas this Hardlex should leave kind of a streak as it goes down. It might be hard to see because it's so shiny, but it did not go down as one blob. The Holuns, let's give it a test here. It wants to stay. Yeah, it's going down as one blob, not leaving any streak at all. So I'll be damned. I bet that is an actual sapphire crystal that they somehow managed to put onto a $50 watch. I mean, I could get more expensive tests done to it, I suppose, but I'm not going to do that for a $50 watch. I'll just delude myself and be happy. All right, let's go on to time accuracy. So shortly after getting the Orient, the shiny Orient, I decided to see how well it kept time. In fact, I decided to see how well all my mechanical watches kept time. Now, I know they all leave the factory calibrated slightly differently, and not everybody's performance is the same, but I wanted to see how mine were working. So I set up my Casio G-Shock Solar Atomic, and I just kept them going all week. All the mechanical watches were either worn in rotation, the ones that weren't being worn, well, I have one watch winder, so I would rotate that as well, but they all stayed wound. So after 1 week, this is what we had. The Seiko, the SARB065 cocktail time, was 1 minute 47 seconds fast. That's for 1 week. And I was pleasantly surprised by that, because in my last video, I noted that it was running fast about 30 seconds a day. So I guess it just needed a little time to settle down, break in. The Holuns ran fast 18 seconds over 1 week. 2 seconds plus, just over 2 seconds a day. The Orient, the shiny 3-star, ran slow 49 seconds. So it ran slow about 7 seconds a day. The Chinese watch keeping the best time of the automatics. Well, now for some final thoughts. First of all, for under $100, you really can't go wrong with either of these. In a way, it just comes down to aesthetics, which you prefer. But I did see some distinctions. I've been wearing them for a little while now. And so I thought I'd just give you a quick wrap-up of the pros and cons as I see them on each one. We'll start with the Chinese Holuns. And first we have to address the elephant in the room. There's no getting around it. This is a blatant ripoff of the Longines. Note-for-note translation. If that bothers you, then act accordingly. I didn't know it when I bought the watch. I'm not familiar with the Longines line. I will say they did a great job copying it. This is a gorgeous watch, which is one of its strengths. Nice gold tone applied indices, the gold tone applied frame around the day date, the guilloche dial. It really is a very strong package. You have a nicely raised insignia on the crown. I don't know if I mentioned that. Speaking of, 100-meter water resistance claimed because they say they have a double gasket in the crown shaft. I dropped it in a glass of water, left it there for a few hours. No deleterious effect. It kept ticking, so maybe they're right. And as I pointed out earlier, maybe they're right about the claimed sapphire crystal. It hasn't scratched. I did a little water droplet test, which I know isn't definitive, but something. It made me feel a little bit better. High quality bracelet for the money, a little jiggly, but you get solid end links, and you get this, one of my favorite features, this butter smooth clasp. Solid steel, a little on the small side, but it works very well. Very secure. I like it a lot. And through that, now you can see, of course, you have the exhibition case back. Nicely decorated also for the money. Yeah, you get a little bit of patterning on the rotor and a little gold accent at the bottom, and also inside with some of the wheels and some rubies visible there. $50, can't go wrong. Now, negatives, other than the whole Longines issue, well, you don't really know the quality of the movement. It looks pretty, but is it any good? I don't even know what brand it is. Some people left some comments giving their opinion in my last video, but I really have no idea. So I don't know how robust this is, how or where I would get it serviced if it went south. That's something for $50. I mean, you could always just go and buy a new one, I suppose, if it craps out. The other thing here is, although it's an automatic, as I mentioned in my last report, my previous criticism still stands. It takes forever to wind this thing up, and you always pretty much do have to wind this thing up. Very poor reserve. 24 hours in general, sometimes maybe 30, depending if you keep it on the watch winder or not. And it's difficult to wind. Not that it's hard to wind, but it's a fairly small crown, and after 100 winds, you start getting those indentations in your bloody fingers. So that's something to consider. Still, I like it enough to wear it. It's in my regular rotation. Now, the Orient, some of the pros here, sure is bright. It's a statement watch. I mean, this is not the watch for you if you're going for understated elegance, that's for sure. And so if you're not, fire away. It's so bright that it's sometimes actually hard to tell what time it is, because the gold hands are the same bright shiny gold as the background and the indices. It's like camouflage. But when you look at it in other lights, you can tell easily enough. And the indices are applied, like the Holuns, very nicely too, right at the numbers. The same as the Holuns. There's nothing off about them that I've been able to find. You also have a nice applied frame around the day-date. Very nice applied logo. Classic Orient logo there with the little red dot in the center. That looks very good. Yeah, the pusher works good for the day-date, but that brings up one of the negatives that really might be a deal breaker for me. I'm not sure I'm going to keep this watch because I don't like that it's automatic only. You can't hand wind it. And having only one watch winder, a couple watches I put in rotation, I've been constantly having to adjust the day and date and the time when I get around to wearing this thing after 2 or 3 days. So I don't know if that's worth it for me. But having said that, it is well made. It's keeping decent time. You don't get the exhibition case back. You don't get the water resistance of the Holuns. This is only 30 meters. It's not hackable, so you do have to take that into consideration. Did I mention it's shiny? The watch strap, it's okay. It's signed. It's a little thin, a little cheesy feeling. But again, for $70, it's actually better than I expected, I have to say. Although that was a 19 millimeter strange size. It's getting a little easier to find watch straps in that size, but still, really Orient? Alrighty, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Perhaps if my wife gets some new equipment in the future, I'll make another one. Don't subscribe because I may not. These, again, are just test videos for me. But thank you very much for watching, and until we meet again, if we do, be well.